Hi everybody, my name's Kelly Phones. I'm an educator here at Montavilla Sewing Centers located in Portland, Oregon. Today we're going to be focusing on the Janome Continental M7, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can program your seam length when you're piecing quilt blocks, for instance. So it's pretty simple, and again, I've talked about this techniques button in other videos. So you are using this techniques button. You have three sections. You have a sewing section, a quilting section, and a specialty section. So we're going to be working in the quilting section. Now, to program your seam length, this is the only way you can do it on this machine. So it's important to play with your technique section and get to know what's in there. So we're going to be doing patchwork piecing. And you have a few options for your patchwork piecing. This automatically puts it into position to use your 1/4 inch foot. You can change your width a little bit if you need to. You can also change your stitch length, which default is 1.8. You can do a regular straight stitch. You can choose to do a back stitch or a tie-off. You can also access your 7mm stitches there. So we're going to leave it on your 1/4 inch stitch, and you can actually use this for any application, garment sewing. Mostly I use it for piecing quilt blocks. And remember, you can scan your QR code and get more information about this technique via your AccuSpark app as well. So to do this, you're going to stitch out your first seam. When you stop sewing, even if you just pause, you're going to get a question on the screen that's going to ask you if you want to continue or do a different size. The trick to this is not to pause while you're sewing your first seam. That way the machine will understand that you want to stitch the whole 4-inch length or whatever your quilt blocks are. So let's go ahead and I'll give you a demonstration on that. I opted to put the 1/4 inch foot without the guide on the machine today, simply because you can see the edge of the fabric better. Now on this first one, it doesn't matter so much where, if you're perfectly lined up, because on this first one, what you want to do is program the length from the top of the fabric to the end of your fabric, or whatever your seam is going to be. So on tumbling blocks, for instance, or any pattern, any block or pattern you're working with where you need to stop 1/4 inch from the end of your fabric, you can mark that, and you can start at the top and you can sew down to your mark, and then the machine will remember that for you. So every single block, every single piece that you work on will stop at the same spot. Saves a huge amount of time marking all your fabric, and it's much more accurate. So what I do is I turn my pivot button on here on the screen, and this is a little different from other sewing. I like to drop my needle. Oops. I don't want the fabric under it. I'm going to drop my needle, and I'm going to tuck my fabric right up against the needle. Then I'm going to drop the foot. And we're just going to stitch down to the edge. And I know I'm not sewing very straight, but you guys will get the idea. So I want to sew all the way down, and I slow down here. Now here on the screen, you're going to have a pop-up that says same size or different size. I want to keep doing the same size, so I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to take my second little quilt block. And the reason I turn that pivot button on is when I stop, that foot is already up, so all I have to do is slide that on. I'm lining it up right against the needle again, and we're going to stitch the second one. Now this time I can go as fast as I want. because the machine's going to stop for me. And all you have to do is cut your fabric. And you can continue chaining those quilt blocks pretty much indefinitely. If you need to do 400 of them, you can do 400 of them. I really like this feature. It's very easy to use, and it makes when I'm chaining my pieces on my quilts, makes it much faster and I'm much more accurate. Hope that little video helped everyone learn how to program a seam length, as well as familiarize you a little bit better with the technique section of the sewing machine. Feel free to call me at our Beaverton location, which is where I usually am at, and happy sewing, everybody.